Good morning. Welcome to the lab. I'm Angelique. This yoga laboratory session is devoted to bandhas. In the lab, each class on Mondays and Wednesdays, we pick a different topic to give a little bit of in-depth study into different aspects of the yoga practice. Already posted on this page at Angelique Yoga are topics on breath and pranayama, asana technique topics, twists, anatomy and kinesthetic topic. We looked at shoulders last week. Today we're going to be looking at bandhas. I'm going to give it a few minutes for the people who are joining us live. If you are joining the replay, just sit tight or fast forward a little bit. We're going to be getting started in just a couple minutes. We just have like 2 minutes. I just want to make sure that people who are joining live have a chance to get here. There we go. I'm stuck in my room again. I shouldn't say stuck. No, I am kind of stuck. Again, the boys have already started school this morning. I've got one in the dining room, in his live classroom, and the other one in the office, which I usually use as my yoga room, doing some of his schoolwork before his live classroom starts in half an hour. So I am tucked away in my room because I don't need a lot of space to move for the topic today. Hi, Yummy. So today we are talking about bandhas. If you're just joining, welcome to the lab. Today's topic is this sort of evasive concept, the bandhas. This is a word that is used very frequently in Ashtanga classes. If you don't do Ashtanga, this may be an unfamiliar term to you. So I'm going to give a basic description and sort of definition of what this is, and then we're going to play around with some stuff. So first of all, bandhas, the word in Sanskrit translates as lock or seal. And think of lock like at dams, right? Where they close off one section and let water in and then close it off again to like change the levels, right? So it's separating certain compartments from the energy that is happening on either end. This is similar to how bandhas work in the body. They sort of are closures at different parts of the body to allow sort of a control over how prana, energy, vital life force energy is flowing, right? There are 3 primary bandhas that we deal with in yoga. In asana, it's mostly mula bandha, which is the root lock or seal. Uddiyana bandha, which is sort of the central lock or seal. And we also deal with jalandhara bandha. Not so much in asana, but definitely in pranayama. A true solid jalandhara bandha here at the pit of the throat is only used during breath retention. However, we do some things in asana practice that hint towards the idea of jalandhara bandha. Bandhas are an energetic concept, right? So they exist on the same plane as chakras and nadis, right? Not necessarily on the physical plane of physical anatomy. So it's not like a doctor could, dissect and say, oh, there's mula bandha right there. It doesn't exist in the physical. However, there's certain places in the physical that trigger the energetic effect of bandhas, right? So we talk about physical engagements and efforts in the body to create the resulting bandha in the energy, in the sort of energetic body, the pranic field of the body. This is why it's very sort of elusive because it's something that happens as a result of the work that you do, and not something that you can just sort of like turn on like a switch. So there are many physical trigger points for bandhas. We're going to talk about sort of the most commonly referred to ones, and I'll mention some of the others as well. So for Mula Bandha, Mula refers to root, right? Just like Muladhara chakra, located in the same space. And it is a grounding effect. The energetic effect is to ground, to secure, to establish stability and safety. The physical access point, the primary physical access point that we talk about in asana is the pelvic floor. So I do have more pictures. So I'm again using this book, which is really great. There's a series of books by Dr. Long that are really helpful for yoga practice and understanding anatomy and stuff, and the pictures are awesome. Another book that I love that I don't have with me is by David Keil, Keil, Yoga Anatomy. He's my yoga anatomy teacher. My teaching is heavily influenced by the way that he, by his information, the way that he teaches, his perspective on the body and the practice. So if you have an opportunity to get David's book, I highly suggest it. I just don't have it with me to show you. But here is a picture of the pelvic floor muscles, right? So this is the pelvis looking sort of down and in, right? The pubic bone in the front, the tailbone in the back, and the sides of the pelvis. Hey, Matt, is this stuff interesting to you? Okay, so the pelvic floor is this sheet of muscles. It's very similar to the diaphragm, right? That separates the upper internal organs from the abdominal internal organs. That sheet of muscles for respiration. If you saw our breath session, I talked a lot about the diaphragm. So it's similar. It's a diaphragm of muscles. It crosses the sit bones on each side, the pubic bone in front, and the tailbone behind. And when relaxed, it sort of softens and lets those four bones sort of spread out a little bit, get away from each other. And when it engages, it lifts into the body, sort of like a tent, right? Lifting up and away from the floor, if you were sitting, lifting up and away from the floor and drawing those four bones towards each other. Now, they don't physically move towards each other, but energetically, it's a draw toward the center and up. So I'm told that men experience this contraction around the perineum. As a woman, I experience this contraction up towards the cervix. So, often you may have heard in Ashtanga this talk about squeezing the anus. I think that, this is just my opinion and my experience, but I think that applies more to how men experience this contraction, a squeezing of the anus. I think that for women, if we focus on squeezing the anus, we involve too many hip muscles or butt muscles that are not supposed to be involved, right? It's a very subtle contraction of the inner muscles of the body that really just, from a relaxed state, just go and just sort of pull everything up through the center, right? It's Kegel muscles, essentially. So if you've ever done any Kegel work, especially moms out there, this is what we're doing, right? But it's just a subtle lift from underneath. We're going to do some work with that, some breathing exercises to access some of the Mula Bandha. But then I want to talk a little bit about the anatomy of Uddiyana Bandha before we move on to actually moving. Quick note. So the pelvic floor is the primary physical access point of the energetic effect of Mula Bandha. So as you engage and lift the pelvic floor, the effect is a rooting and a securing of your foundational energy. So whether you're sitting or standing, it's a way to sort of lock down at the base of the spine so that everything that happens above creates more space. So Uddiyana is what happens above. Uddiyana means lifting, uplifting, floating, or rising, right? So if Mula is the rooting and anchoring energy, Uddiyana is the lengthening, lifting, dynamic energy. And you can only lift away from something if something is secure. If Mula Bandha isn't present, everything just goes, right? So Mula Bandha is first. Uddiyana cannot happen without Mula. The space and the lift and the float won't happen without something to lift away from. So, often Uddiyana happens automatically. Mula Bandha engages and Uddiyana follows. Uddiyana, the physical access point of Uddiyana is the low belly. And the low belly muscles, particularly the primary muscles, are the transverse abdominals. This is the muscles that move crossways around the waist, not up and down, right? So it's not the washboard abs. In fact, the washboard abs, that six-pack, can get in the way of finding your Uddiyana Bandha. It's the muscles that sort of squeeze to the middle like a corset. They don't necessarily move the bones of the body. They just hug in toward the midline. A secondary muscle I find that's really important in Uddiyana, particularly when you're doing back bending, is the iliopsoas. So it's the iliacus and the psoas and how they work together. I'm going to show you pictures. So first of all, the transverse abdominals. You can see here, they're the abdominals that wrap sideways. The fibers move sideways. So when they contract, they squeeze to the midline. It is not those up and down fibers of the rectus abdominals, right? It is the, let me get closer, transverse abdominals, the fibers running sideways. Yeah? So those participate in activating Uddiyana Bandha, the uplifting, the lengthening. I think of these transverse abdominals working like this. I imagine like a balloon that's not fully inflated, right? Not fully tense, a partially inflated balloon. And when you squeeze the middle of the balloon, the energy moves down and it moves up, right? If you squeeze the middle, I wish I should have a balloon as a prop. Imagine it. Now Mula Bandha is the knot at the end of balloon. Without the knot at the end of the balloon, if you squeeze, the air will be expelled through the base of the balloon and there will be no upward responding energy. But because the balloon is knotted at the bottom and rooted and secured at the bottom, when you squeeze the middle, energy moves down, bounces against that knot, and is allowed to move upward in the opposite direction. And the squeeze in the middle creates that. Does that make sense? So the squeeze in the middle of the transverse abdominals sends energy down and up. And because Mula Bandha is rooted at the base, it bounces against that, creating more foundational connection, first of all, but then also a rebounding, lengthening upward. So this creates space, length, float or fly, and in particular when you're doing back bends, allows for an avoidance of compression in the vertebrae. I want to show you the iliopsoas because, like I said, I think it's a participant for sure in Uddiyana, and especially essential in back bends. So this is the iliopsoas. This is looking at the skeleton from the front. The muscles, so the psoas are the muscles that attach along the lumbar vertebrae all the way up into the base of the thoracic, right? Come along the inside of the pelvis, so deep within the abdomen and attach to the inner thigh. The iliacus attaches through the back ridge of the pelvis along that inner low belly and attached to the inner thigh, right? This is the muscle of Navasana, yeah? But it helps support the squeezing of the inside, the internal muscles, the deep internal muscles, to give support and strength. I wanted to show how deep those muscles are. Yeah, here. So here's a collection of a bunch of muscles, right, through the body. And you can see this deep cord of muscle, that's, well, the psoas and the iliacus joins it there. But that's how deep inside the body. It's behind the internal organs. Yeah? So those superficial abdominal muscles really do not participate in Uddiyana Bandha. if you're trying to connect to your Uddiyana Bandha and you feel the wall of muscles through the front, particularly those six-pack muscles, this is getting in your way, right? So the people who are very athletic, I think runners in particular, but anyone who, regularly works out in a way where they use core strength for stability, you may have to do some retraining to figure out how to let go of some of those more superficial layers of abdominal muscles in order to access the deeper layers. One thing that can help, if you go back through my feed and find the breathing exercises, part 1, we do a lot of breathing exercises to relax the abdominal muscles. So this can be a start if you do find that you're struggling to figure out where Uddiyana Bandha is in the body. Okay, Jalandhara Bandha, as I said, is in the pit of the throat, and we really don't use it in asana. It is for retention during pranayama. It seals off the top of the torso to prevent pressure building in the head during the time that you're holding your breath. It keeps the pranic energy contained within the torso, right? So I'm not going to get deep into it because it doesn't really apply to asana. And how it is used in pranayama is a very advanced practice. So just know that that's where it's used. We do hint at it, like in shoulder stand, right? When we're inverted and our chin is towards our chest, that's a place where we hint towards Jalandhara Bandha. Also in Dandasana, when the first seated pose of the Ashtanga primary series, we're hinting at the idea of Jalandhara Bandha, just bringing an energetic awareness of the space between the chin and and the pit of the throat, that dip in the collarbones. So that's enough of anatomy, I think, for today. How do I want to say this? I joke about it when I'm teaching, but I really do believe this, that bandhas are absolutely a tool for our practice, right? How we use bandhas in our body help to provide safety and security, help to avoid injury, help to sort of create the full expression and intention of each posture. Remember that the intention of yoga asana is to move energy and to connect to an inner space awareness, not necessarily, like the body is the tool as well, right? To direct us towards yoga. The body is not the point. Bandhas are a tool to help that process within the body. But also, I think that bandhas are a bit the point. Yeah? So we are using asana. So we're using bandhas to connect to asana. And in using our experiences in asana to further cultivate and refine our understandings of bandha and how bandha moves prana. And in this way, we're directing our awareness and our attention to the more subtle aspects of experience. And as work that happens on that pranic layer of the body, it's also affecting, the chakra system, and specifically the kundalini, the kanda, right? The Mula Bandha, Muladhara chakra, the kanda are located in the same space, in this space in front of the tailbone. So as we are doing Mula Bandha, we are stimulating the kanda, to awaken the kundalini, the rising serpent of energy that, eventually provides liberation. So, enlightenment. And isn't that why we do yoga? Isn't it? So, it has a significance. Yeah, not just to help us with our bodies and to provide safety and to provide the experience of the asana, but it is then directed towards the experience of bandhas to give us that inner body awareness of pranic energy, awareness of what's happening in those subtle layers. let's do a little bit of practice with our bandhas. Oh, one thing I do want to suggest, another book for those of you that are interested in bandha work. Mula Bandha, The Master Key, by Swami Buddhananda. This is published by the Satyananda Yoga Bihar Yoga. They have a lot of amazing books. So, can you see? Mula Bandha, The Master Key. It's an excellent resource if you are looking to get more information on bandhas. Okay, let's do some work. So bring yourselves into a seated position. Comfortable crossed legs. Full lotus if you can do lotus. Or, crossing your legs comfortably underneath you is fine. Let your hands rest on your thighs. You can gently close your eyes. And we're going to begin by tuning in to the breath. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Long, steady breaths. Establish an evenness in the breath so that the inhales and exhales take the same amount of time. A softness and ease and a freedom in the transitional moments so that you're not closing your throat to shift from inhale to exhale or exhale to inhale. Bring awareness down into the bowl of the pelvis. Feel the sit bones against the floor. Identify the position of your pubic bone and tailbone. And imagine a sheet of muscles that crosses between and among these four bones. And at the bottom of an exhale, so when you are completely empty of breath, I want you to engage and lift the sheet of muscles into the body, just gently, like you're lifting a tent. And hold that contraction while you inhale. Fill the lungs. Hold it while you inhale. And then while you exhale, slowly release the contraction, letting that sheet of muscles fall back toward the floor and spread the four bones of the pelvis. When you're empty, engage and hold the tent. Keep it engaged and lifted into the body as you inhale, all the way up, filling the lungs. And then as you exhale, soften the contraction, releasing the tent to let it fall back into the earth. At the bottom of the exhale, engage and hold. Lift the tent into the body. Keep that as you inhale. And soften the contraction as you exhale. Engage and hold through the inhale. And soften through the exhale. Engage and hold on empty breath. It's easiest to find these contractions with an empty breath. The vacuum created with an empty breath allows you to draw the muscles into the space of the body and relax as you exhale. Empty breath, contract and hold as you inhale. Last one here. And exhale, release, softening the muscles, emptying the breath. Good, so just assess a moment how that felt for you. Was it hard to feel like those muscles were engaging? Was it hard to let go of the muscles, the contraction? Did it just sort of turn on and off rather than a slow release of contraction? Yeah, this breathing exercise can bring awareness to when it's engaged and when it's not engaged, and help you refine how much tension you use through the pelvic floor muscles, right? Ideally in Asana, Mula Bandha is pretty much held the entire time, yeah? But this breathing exercise can give you a feel for your control over the contraction of that muscle and help you to develop awareness of when it's contracted and when it's not. Sometimes, actually I find especially women, we have a slight tension of contraction of Mula Bandha at all times. And that's often why it feels difficult to find engagement. So if you're not sure if you're engaging your Mula Bandha, try letting it go. And if you can let something go, you were holding it, right? And it's sometimes just that subtle. Over time and over working with bandhas, you will develop more refinement of awareness, of contractibility, and obviously strength will develop as well. Now, did anyone feel that the low belly muscles automatically sort of draw back to meet your Mula Bandha as it engages? Yeah, this is the Uddiyana Bandha. So Uddiyana Bandha in the body, I talked about transverse abdominals, but it's not necessarily all of them. It's mostly down here, the lower part of the transverse abdominals, right? So it's usually like 3 or 4 fingers below the belly button down here. Or if you take your hip bones, that space across between the hip bones, there and down, right, is this lowest part of the belly that is the trigger point, the access point of Uddiyana Bandha. These transverse abdominals up here, we want to allow those to remain free for the breath to move. If we're squeezing everything, we're going to inhibit breath. Now, depending on what you're asking your body to do, like if you were trying to press into a handstand, yeah, you're going to need to use a lot more, right? But just sitting and breathing, it's just these low belly spaces. Depending on the asana you're connecting to, these bandhas work differently. The trigger points work differently depending on what you're asking the bandhas to do. If you're just asking Uddiyana Bandha to keep you sitting tall, less engagement through the physical aspect, right? If you're asking Uddiyana Bandha to maintain an arm balance, probably a bit more, right? Or to support you and create space for your low back as you're going into Kapotasana, deep back bend, yeah, there's going to be something more going on there, right? So Uddiyana Bandha, right, happens in this low belly space, not up here. One easy way to find it is in down dog. I don't really have space for down dog, but Trini position as well. So did you see that right there? So if you keep your abdominal muscles hard, you're not going to be able to find and access your Uddiyana Bandha. So first, Trini position, hands to the floor or fingertips to the floor. Give weight to the hands. Relax the abdominal muscles, right? Let go of that wall. Relax the abdominal muscles. Press the floor away. And let the inner muscles, the low belly muscles, scoop into the body, right? So it's not the hard wall. Let me come a little closer. It's not the hard wall. It's not totally relaxed. It's drawing that softness into the hollow space. Yeah? This can take a lot of practice. It has to do with your weight distribution, allowing the energy to draw into the hollow spaces, Mula Bandha being engaged. Remember I talked about you can't find Uddiyana without Mula. It seals the base of the energy, creating the vacuum within the low belly to draw those muscles in. Remember how the iliopsoas, those muscles were way in the back of the body, right behind the internal organs? This is what you're sort of drawing energy towards. As if you're trying to mold clay along the back of a bowl. You're trying to pull your abdominal organs towards the back of the pelvis. Hi, Swagata. I feel like we should have a part 2. I'm starting to think we should have a part 2 so we can dig into Uddiyana Bandha. I'm going to do that Wednesday. Join me at 8:30 and we will look more deeply into Uddiyana Bandha. There's a lot to explore there. On Wednesday, we're going to look at Uddiyana Kriya, which is an exercise that you can do to refine the use of the muscles of the transverse abdominals, the iliopsoas. And we're going to look at what Uddiyana does in Asana, different places where we can find it. Trini position, also down dog, forward folds, and some light back bending. So let's take this into a part 2. Wednesday at 8:30, join me here again at Angelique Yoga on Facebook. and we'll look more deeply at Uddiyana Bandha. Hopefully today gave you at least a foundation for what bandhas are, what they do in the body, their sort of energetic purpose, and at least how to start connecting to your Mula Bandha. Thank you so much. Feel free to ask questions, leave comments, or you can ask me questions in private message. It may take me a day or two to get to questions in private message. I am playing elementary school teacher to a kindergartner and a second grader, and everything else that's happening these days. So please don't be discouraged if I don't answer you right away. I will get to your question. Someone left me a question the other day and I didn't get to it, and now I can't find it. So I hope that she didn't delete it or something. Maybe it's still in there and I'll just have to search a little more. But thank you for joining me today for Bandhas. Wednesday will be our part 2 as we look more deeply at Uddiyana Bandha. Have a great afternoon. Remember that these classes are all offered on a donation basis. So if you are able to and wish to, please donate via Venmo at Angelique Sandus 0646 if you need the 4 numbers. And at Zelle, Angelique_yoga@yahoo.com. But again, if I know that this is straining on everyone, so if you're not able to, please continue to take benefit of the classes anyway. I'll see you Wednesday. I gotta get out there and check on my kids. Hopefully they're doing their schoolwork. Namaste. Thank you so much.